Shadows of Innocence, the tragic cases that haunt me disclaimer. This is a true crime story involving sensitive content meant for viewers 18 and up. Names have been changed to protect the privacy of those involved. This video discusses actual criminal cases that contain disturbing elements including kidnapping, murder, and sexual assault. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. The purpose of this content is educational, to raise awareness about personal safety and recognize warning signs. Please do not attempt to investigate these cases on your own or imitate any activities described. If you enjoy true crime stories with deep investigations, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more cases from Detective Shernan's files. Case Summary. Some cases never leave you. As a detective who's worked the darkest crimes across Southeast Asia, I've seen humanity at its worst. Today, I'm breaking down two devastating cases that demonstrate how everyday people can harbor deadly potential. The first case follows 16-year-old Mei Lin, a beautiful and talented high school student from Malaysia who vanished after her evening shift at a mall in 2008. What began as a kidnapping for ransom spiraled into murder when the perpetrators, 4 young men who knew her personally, killed her to prevent identification. Most shocking was discovering that one kidnapper had been by her family's side during the search, pretending to help while actually monitoring the investigation. The ringleader, a 22-year-old named Tay, was obsessed with Mei after repeated rejections, leading him to orchestrate her abduction. Initially sentenced to death, recent Malaysian legal reforms reduced his sentence to 40 years imprisonment. The second case examines the murder of Yan Li, a 36-year-old mother in rural China. When her husband took a job in the city, Yan stayed behind with their teenage son. One morning in 2000, she left to harvest cotton, wearing a short skirt, and never returned. After an extensive search, police found her body hidden in tall grass, sexually assaulted, mutilated, and murdered. The killer turned out to be a 30-year-old unemployed neighbor who, humiliated by village gossip about his joblessness, attacked Yan when seeing her working in the fields. This case demonstrates how seemingly ordinary neighbors can harbor deadly intentions. Both cases reveal how rejected obsession and wounded pride can trigger explosive violence, and how predators often hide in plain sight. Join me as I walk through these investigations step by step, revealing the psychological patterns that turned everyday situations into deadly encounters. The case of Mei Lin, Malaysia, 2008. The sticky evening air hung heavy over Kulai City as I arrived at Sultan Ibrahim High School. It was September 12, 2008, and I'd been called in to assist with a high-profile kidnapping that was rapidly becoming the most talked-about case in Malaysia. Before I take you deeper into this investigation, I'd appreciate if you'd take a second to hit that like button and subscribe. Your support helps me continue sharing these important cases. Detective Shernan, thank you for coming. The local police chief greeted me, his voice tense. We received the ransom call 6 hours ago. The kidnappers want 60,000 ringgit for the girl's return. He led me to a small conference room where photos of Mei Lin were spread across the table. 16 years old, with delicate features and a warm smile that didn't just photograph well, it captured something genuine about her character. What do we know about her? I asked, studying the timeline the local officers had assembled. By all accounts, she's exceptional. Top grades, dancer, cheerleader, Works part-time at a fashion boutique in the mall to help her family financially. Last seen leaving work around 10 p.m. yesterday. Never made it home. I picked up her school photo. Beautiful girl. The school's beauty queen, actually. Popular, but not in a divisive way. Teachers and students all speak highly of her. I nodded, knowing that cases involving attractive teenagers often had an unfortunate pattern. Any boyfriends? Rejected suitors? Stalkers? The chief slid across a preliminary report. She has a boyfriend of about a year. Stable relationship. But there have been other admirers. We're compiling a list. What about the ransom call? Made from the victim's own phone. Male voice, calm, methodical. Calls lasted less than 30 seconds each time. They're being cautious. Let me hear it. The recording was brief, but chilling. The kidnapper sounded young, but controlled. No background noise to help identify his location. My instincts told me this wasn't a professional job, but not necessarily amateurs either. Somewhere in between dangerous territory. They've set a drop location near Jinhai Bay, about 45 minutes from here, close to the Singapore border. I glanced at my watch. The family securing the money, they've managed about 33,000 ringgit. Not what was demanded. Let's put surveillance on the drop point. But discreetly, if these kidnappers spook, it could end badly for Mei Lin. Little did I know then how badly it had already ended. The family friend made the drop at 3 a.m. as instructed. We watched from a distance using night vision equipment. Nobody came. Hours passed. The kidnappers went silent. By afternoon, we intercepted a proton Kimbara spotted near one of the previous designated drop points. 3 young men inside, looking nervous. A 4th was picked up shortly after at his home. What struck me immediately was how ordinary they looked, local boys in their late teens and early 20s, not hardened criminals. The evidence in the car was damning. Mei Lin's phone and a bag containing most of the ransom money. During initial questioning, one detail jumped out. All 4 knew Mei Lin personally. Even more disturbing, one had been staying with her family throughout the ordeal, consoling them while pushing them to pay quickly. He was right there. Mei Lin's mother sobbed when I told her, sitting in my living room, telling us to hurry with the money while my daughter was already... She couldn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. After 18 hours of interrogation, the truth emerged. Mei Lin had been killed shortly after her abduction. Her body was dumped in an overgrown area called Wild Princess Garden. When we arrived, the scene was devastating. Her lower body and part of her face had been burned in an attempt to destroy evidence. The autopsy confirmed asphyxiation as the cause of death. Time of death was estimated to be within hours of her abduction. No sexual assault, which initially puzzled me until I understood the motive more clearly. It doesn't make sense, I said to my partner, as we sifted through evidence at the station. They demand ransom for a victim they've already killed? That's not how kidnapping works. Unless the ransom was secondary, he suggested. Maybe this was personal. He was right. The picture came into focus as we dug into the background of the 4 suspects. Tae Kim Hong, 22, Leong Sun Long, 17, Wang Shen, 17, and Wang Ka, 16. All school dropouts. All knew Mei Lin, but Tae Kim Hong stood out. Witnesses confirmed he'd been aggressively pursuing Mei Lin for months. Text messages, phone calls, unwanted attention she'd complained about to her boyfriend. The rejection had festered in him, turning admiration to obsession, then to something darker. You think he orchestrated this because she wouldn't date him? My partner asked. I nodded, reviewing Mei Lin's phone records. Classic rejected stalker pattern. He couldn't have her, so he took control the only way he could. The kidnapping was likely his idea, a way to possess her, terrorize her, maybe even play hero by negotiating her release. But why kill her so quickly? My guess? Things went wrong. She recognized them immediately, of course. Panic set in. They realized she could identify them. Once they crossed that line, there was no going back. During the trial in 2010, Tay's defense was almost laughable. He claimed to have lent his car to a friend he couldn't name or describe. Said he found Mei Lin's phone in his car and decided to keep it, despite it having no SIM card. The holes in his story were big enough to drive his Proton Kimbara through. When his defense crumbled, Tay resorted to accusations of police brutality, electric shocks, forced confessions, the works. Standard desperation tactics I'd seen countless times. The verdict: guilty. Tay received the death penalty. The minors received long prison sentences, except Wang Kao, who was acquitted due to insufficient evidence. Case closed. Justice served, or so it seemed. 16 years later, in 2024, Malaysia abolished mandatory death sentences. Tay's case was reviewed. Despite the brutality of his crime, his sentence was commuted to 40 years and 17 strokes of the cane. Mei Lin's family was devastated all over again. I visited them after the resentencing. 16 years had grayed their hair and deepened the lines on their faces, but their grief remained raw. "He will be out someday," Mei Lin's mother said quietly. But Mei Lin is forever gone. What makes seemingly normal young men commit such heinous acts? In Tay's case, it was a toxic combination of entitlement, rejection, and an inability to accept that Mei Lin had the right to say no. His obsession festered until violence became his answer. I've seen this pattern repeat throughout my career. The questions always haunt me. Could this have been prevented? Could someone have recognized the warning signs? Should Mei Lin's boyfriend have taken her concerns about Tay more seriously? What would you have done if you were in her boyfriend's position? Would you have recognized the danger? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. The Case of Yanli, China, 2000. The cotton fields of Tianmen Township stretched to the horizon, golden in the morning sun. It looked peaceful, but I knew better. I'd been called in as a consultant on this case, a brutal murder that had shattered the quiet rural community in Hubei Province, China. September 18th, 2000. I stood in the tall grass where Officer Chen had discovered Yan Li's body. If you're finding value in these case analyses, please take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe to support the channel. The husband found her motorcycle abandoned here, Officer Chen explained, pointing to a dirt path intersecting the cotton fields. But we didn't find her body until days later, hidden deeper in the field. The facts were straightforward, yet puzzling. Yan Li, 36, had left her home around 7 a.m. wearing a short skirt, unusual attire for cotton harvesting. By evening, she hadn't returned. Her husband Guo, who had recently taken a job at a power plant in the city, rushed home after their son called him, concerned. What brought the husband to the city in the first place? I asked. Financial necessity. He'd been unemployed, and the power plant job was a good opportunity. He left just a week before the murder. I nodded, making notes. And the strange clothing choice, the short skirt, initially raised suspicions. Some thought she might have been meeting a lover. The husband certainly feared that. I'd reviewed the autopsy report that morning. The grim details lingered in my mind: sexual assault, mutilation of her genitals, blunt force trauma to the head. The killer had struck her with both the blade and handle of a large knife. Any suspects? I asked. We've narrowed it down significantly. There were only 3 men near the scene that morning: Mr. Ying, Mr. Yang, and a 30-year-old named Tu Jia. Tell me about Tu. Officer Chen's expression darkened. Unemployed, lives with his parents, no prior criminal record, but something's off about him. He was the first to point fingers at Ying, claiming to have seen him in the fields that morning. Classic deflection, I noted. What about his own whereabouts? Claims he was having breakfast in town, then came home around 8 a.m. But we checked surveillance cameras on the only road out of the village. He never appeared. He's lying. The next day, I accompanied the officers to Tu's home. His parents were visibly nervous, trying to prevent us from speaking with their son. Only when directly confronted with our suspicions did they relent. Tu sat across from me in the local police station, his demeanor alternating between defiance and fear. I decided on a direct approach. "We know you were in the cotton fields the morning Yan Li was killed," I stated firmly. "Mr. Ying saw you there around 8:30, looking disoriented." Mr. Yang heard a woman's cry for help. The timeline matches perfectly. His eyes darted frantically. "I told you, I was having breakfast. The restaurant owner doesn't remember you. The security cameras don't show you leaving the village. Your window overlooks the exact spot where Yan Li was working. Why were you watching her too?" 3 hours of intensive questioning followed. Tu's story shifted repeatedly until finally, faced with overwhelming evidence, he broke. "I didn't mean to kill her," he whispered, his voice barely audible, but his confession revealed premeditation. That morning, he'd watched from his window as Yan Li worked in the cotton field. Her short skirt triggered something in him, a mix of sexual desire and deep-seated rage. He was frustrated by years of unemployment and village ridicule. Labeled useless and dependent, his anger had festered. "I just wanted to talk to her at first," he claimed. But then he admitted grabbing a kitchen knife, approaching her in the field where she was comfortable, letting her guard down with a neighbor, then striking her head with the blunt side to disorient her. He dragged her into the tall grass where he sexually assaulted her, mutilated her, and finally delivered the killing blow. "Why the mutilation?" I asked, trying to understand the extreme violence. Tu stared at the table. I was angry at women, at everyone who looked down on me. The murder weapon and Yan Li's clothes were found buried in mud near a pond, exactly where Tu described hiding them. On October 26, 2000, Tu was sentenced to death for murder and sexual assault. The execution was carried out shortly after, as was standard practice in China at that time. What struck me most about this case was how a seemingly ordinary village resident, someone neighbors had known their entire lives, could harbor such violent impulses. Tu wasn't an outsider or a drifter. He was the boy next door, the young man villagers watched grow up. The case raised uncomfortable questions about how communities respond to those who don't fit conventional success patterns. Tu's unemployment and dependence on his parents became sources of mockery and shame, fueling his resentment. While nothing excuses his horrific actions, I wondered if different community attitudes might have prevented the powder keg of rage from igniting. After the trial, some of Tu's relatives partially blamed Yan Li for wearing provocative clothing. This victim-blaming narrative was quickly rejected by most villagers, who recognized the crime as entirely two's responsibility, the act of a disturbed individual unable to control his impulses. The true tragedy of Yan Li's murder extends beyond her death. Her husband Guo was tormented by guilt for leaving his family, her son was left motherless, and a peaceful community was forever changed by the realization that monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they live next door, carrying their darkness behind ordinary faces. Connecting the cases, patterns of predation. As I review my notes on both these cases, separated by geography and 8 years, I'm struck by the disturbing parallels. In both instances, the victims were women admired for their beauty. Both were killed by men who knew them, not strangers lurking in shadows, but familiar faces with hidden violent potential. Mei Lin's case reveals the danger of rejected obsession, how Tay's entitlement turned to deadly rage when denied what he wanted. Yan Li's murder demonstrates how societal pressure and personal inadequacy can explode into violence against convenient targets. Both killers attempted to cover their tracks by partially burning Mei Lin's body. 2. By hiding Yan Li deep in the fields and burying evidence. Both initially deflected suspicion onto others, and most chillingly, both cases remind us that predators don't announce themselves. They walk among us, sometimes even pretending to help. The psychological pattern that connects these cases is what I call triggered entitlement, a dangerous mindset where rejection or perceived humiliation activates a violent response. These individuals feel entitled to control others, particularly women, and react with extreme aggression when that control is threatened. What can we learn from these tragedies? Several crucial lessons. 1. Take harassment seriously. Mei Lin's stalking by Tay should have raised more red flags. 2. Trust your instincts about unusual behavior. Tay's excessive involvement with the family during the search was suspicious. 3. Community isolation and ridicule can contribute to dangerous psychological states, as seen with 2. 4. Predators often hide behind ordinary facades and may be people we know and trust. I've spent decades investigating the darkest human actions, and I'm still haunted by what people are capable of. These cases remind us that the monsters in our midst don't always look monstrous. They look like the hair salon employee who offers condolences, or the neighbor watching from his window. What do you think could have prevented these tragedies? Would you have recognized the warning signs? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you found this analysis valuable, please like and subscribe for more insights from my case files. Remember to share these lessons with loved ones. The more we understand these patterns, the better we can protect ourselves and those we care about. Until next time, this is Detective Shernan, reminding you to stay vigilant, trust your instincts, and look out for one another. The darkness is real, but so is our power to illuminate it.